Wind and geothermal, I support too, but specifically solar panel, it has a whole industry behind it, and like the wind turbines are like way harder to like move and shit. So like I think solar panels are like really easy startups, even though Elon failed to do one. Like I support just like it's like I could start it. Like I believe I could easily start a solar panel company. You know,
you probably could.
But a wind and geothermal, I feel like I need a degree.
June 14, the FAA and Europe's EASA, along with Boeing and Airbus, all reported that they are investigating how counterfeit titanium with falsified documentation was used in manufacturing Boeing and Airbus passenger planes. The bogus titanium involved was used by Spirit Aerosystems, a key supplier to both.
Spirit Aerosystems. Does that sound familiar?
Kamikazes.
That is the same company that the whistleblower was from.
Both Boeing and Airbus. However, all companies involved have gone into full-blown damage control mode, issuing assurances that the phony titanium installed on many aircraft has not jeopardized safety.
Our poison is not poison, we promise.
Joe Bucino said the phony aircraft bling came with counterfeit documents as well. Bucino said more than 1,000 tests have been completed to confirm the mechanical.
Though.
I know.
The metallurgical process.
At least
the thing is nobody's correct. Making video on this boring of a thing. Right?
Exactly. Not yet, anyway.
There's plenty of written articles on it, but it's like it's going to be like in like nerd magazines and papers.
Yeah.
It's so this is like low click stuff.
He's got 100,000 subscribers. 100,000. This has 10,000 views.
No, I just mean like as far as people who's reading the article. It's a lower percentage of people reading it to make a video to begin with.
The affected material to ensure continued airworthiness. Airbus identified as.
And now when we clip this, we'll have one of two videos.
What do we think of the list, though? What, you got any A things to put in there?
Let me think. Asshole.
Yeah, that one's easy. But it's calling somebody an asshole above like somebody who's doing brutality. Like it needs to be like, atrocity.
The aircraft.
Let me think.
That's been affected. However, Boeing declined to say what planes were involved in the issue, but said it affected only a small number of parts on any aircraft. The problem with the titanium, which was first reported by the New York Times, highlights the heightened concern about fake or improperly documented parts entering the aviation supply chain in recent years, and the growing pressure on the supply of titanium. Aircraft manufacturers rely on a sprawling network of suppliers, making it difficult to oversee quality. So as a result of this and other sketchy aircraft suppliers, several
He really does mumble.
You can tell he's just reading.
Yeah, like, and this is kind of why I picked this one and why I scrubbed through it, because I wasn't sure, and because it's a niche thing, I'm like, I don't know, but because he's just reading articles, I'm like, he's clearly sourcing it, so.
And he's putting it right in there. He's putting the sources in the video.
So I can't exactly like. Thank you, Maximus Aviation, my guy, for compiling this information for us.
Manufacturers launched a task force in February to try and better address the issue. In a statement Friday, the FAA said that
how much more shit can Boeing possibly step in at this point?
This type of shit I'm talking about. I just saw this because I'm still like working on stuff. Like, yes, rebates. Like they even gave Elon a bunch of money to help start Solar City. Like they do cut out tons of checks for businesses and stuff.
That Boeing
it was does have community sheds. Like, who needs a bunch of hammers anyway? I do like this. I do like this. But also, like, I think we can convert the Mexican day labor industry into a more legitimate industry. So the day laborers can come in and then they can have like a whole like independent contractor where they're able to run it, and they'll bring their hammers. Like you don't have to even worry about having a hammer.
Mario.
There's a guy there. Yeah. Like Mario, I guess. He's just show up and hammer shit for you. And they
both-
get paid by the government like a contract, like,
Hopefully not your wife.
because like it's like after the Great Depression, they hired like acting troops to like stimulate the economy and paid these people and sent them around the country.
Yes, yeah, they just made jobs up.
Because like it could be like you could do community civil affairs, right? And then you have think this is getting real lib here, right? Because it's like, how about you leave people alone? But anyway, like you have people who are coming in, right? And you have these incentives where then they're able to basically integrate into the community through a government program that will pay them to help basically like do things for the community to help build up the community so they feel proud to be in that community. And obviously racists would never go for this, so such a law would never be written, because the issue that people have, because I'm fine with just letting them come, but like there could be policies in place that would be cool.
Regulators voluntarily and issued a bulletin to suppliers reminding them to be alert to potential falsified records. The FAA also
who
said
needs
it
that
was
many hammers? I
investigating
agree with that so much, though. Like, who needs that many hammers?
I mean, one of everything is all you need, theoretically.
Uh-huh.
Scope of the problem.
But you do need different hammers for different things.
This is kind of commie.
But the European Aviation Safety Agency, which oversees Airbus, said it learned of the issue from authorities in Italy and began an investigation. But so far, EASA said it has not found indications of a safety problem. In a statement, EASA said that it will investigate further the root cause of the document traceability issue as it continues to monitor closely any new developments that could potentially lead to an unsafe condition in the fleet. While manufacturers said there were no immediate safety concerns, the disclosure of the questionable titanium was made as...
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we believe Boeing? At this point, why the fuck would we believe Boeing? Why are they not talking to Airbus and getting what they say on this? Because that would be a more reliable source than fucking Boeing. Really, like, after everything that we've done covering this story, for us to just be like, Boeing's telling the truth this time is highly unlikely, in my opinion. I don't think we should... I still think that the US government should just nationalize the aviation, like the civilian aviation part of Boeing. Just make it US aviation.
Okay, commie.
Fuck Boeing. They've had their chance. They fucked it up. They killed people.
It's just like bailing out the banks,
Yeah, don't pay them anything. Fire them all. Nationalize Boeing.
You're fired.
And rehire people. The same plan that I have for Australia, actually. Fire everybody, and everybody who served the British government banned from politics. Everybody else, it's like jury duty. There's sessions, and you get called up. You make laws, or you don't. Hopefully, don't.
Boeing remains under close scrutiny by the FAA and lawmakers as reviews continue over the mid-air door panel blowout of an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX in January, as well as accounts from whistleblowers alleging of improper manufacturing processes and the possible of cover-ups by Boeing. And the timing is also interesting, considering Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun is scheduled to testify in front of a Senate panel investigating the issue next week. The New York Times reported that an investigation into the titanium came after a supplier found small holes in the metal linked to corrosion. According to a person briefed on the situation who spoke on the condition of anonymity due to the ongoing investigation, he said the metal entered the supply chain from China laundered through Italy and Turkish companies. Titanium is light but strong, making it useful in aircraft. But as demand has grown and
I got another one for A, but the thing is like it's pushing it because it's like, because this is like meme tier lists, right? Okay, so you tell me I put Auschwitz.
Oh my god! Of course.
What do you what do we think of Auschwitz being the A tier?
Yes.
Okay.
And putting Hitler in Elmo tier would be even funnier.
Well, Hitler's not alive. It's people who are alive
True.
today.
True. Okay.
Okay, what do we think? Crazy Frog definitely over Chum Bucket, right?
Mm-hmm. Diary.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid over Dilbert. Okay. Elmo over Emu.
I don't know. Amy's kind of funny. Let chat decide.
Mm-hmm. And then I still don't like the S, you know?
Yeah.
In recent years, and the fallout from the war in Ukraine has constrained Russian supplies.
Can we
Experts
have
say
Assad
aviation
in A?
suppliers have increasingly turned to
You can just
China as sources
do
for the
Assad
metal.
as the A tier, which honestly, the same as pretty much doing Auschwitz as the A tier at this point.
For the early stages of production are highly concentrated. Yeah, because we know China would never do such a nefarious thing. Sal Arima, the founder of titanium supplier Experian X, said that those Chinese sources can be difficult to trace. That poses a problem because titanium is highly reactive during production, meaning metal intended for use in planes has to be made under highly controlled conditions to avoid contamination that can affect its strength and corrosion resistance. Arima, whose company
I
is
got
now
some
beginning to
interesting
produce
little tidbit.
titanium.
These aviation nerds were kind of like the first and essential like open source reporting in Syria.
Okay.
Like they like it really like a lot of it grew out of aviation nerds where they would be like, yes, this is a Russian plane, you know, stuff like that.
No shit.
So like a lot of like the best Syrian civil war sorts, because this is when we didn't just all go on MySpace, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of websites that I would be going to about the Syrian civil war would be like airplane fan sites to like get sources and shit. So
That's
like
hysterical.
the sourcing in here does not surprise me because this is how the aviation nerds are. They're all like this. Really good sourcing.
Sense. Yeah, it makes sense.
In the U.S. said we have a broken supply chain. Being able to trace it is very difficult, he said. Boeing said the titanium was linked to shipments involving a small group of suppliers, but Boeing said that tests of the metal have indicated that the metal was the right kind of titanium for use in aircraft. In a statement, Boeing said we are removing any affected parts on airplanes prior to delivery. However, Boeing concluded our analysis shows the in-service fleet can continue to fly safely. As for Airbus, they said that the airworthiness of its A220 remains intact and that the safety and quality of our aircraft are our utmost important priority. However, according to the Washington Post, as the aviation supply chain is growing more sprawling and complex, moving farther away from where the final manufacturing occurs, there has been growing concern in the industry and among regulators about how to ensure that the parts that companies are receiving meet standards. They reported last year CFM International, an engine manufacturer, accused one of its suppliers, AOG Technics, of selling it thousands of engine parts with forged documents. Then in September, the FAA issued a formal notification over a part supplied by AOG Technics without the agency's production approval. Britain's Serious Fraud Office has launched a criminal investigation into the matter. A subsequent review found that fewer than 1% of CFM engines used in older generation Boeing 737 and Airbus A320 aircraft were affected, but the incident raised alarms in the industry. It led major manufacturers and U.S. airlines, including American and United, to form a supply chain integrity coalition. The Integrity Coalition, formed in February, is co-chaired by Robert Sumwalt, the former chair of the National Transportation Safety Board, and John D. Porcari, a former U.S. Deputy Secretary of Transportation. As part of its work, it launched a 90-day review aimed at finding ways to strengthen existing supply chains, work that will be used to develop recommendations to block unapproved parts. Porcari outlined some of the coalition's work during a joint...
This is fucking wild sourcing.
Yeah, aviation nerds.
aviation safety.
I'm glad this is the video I picked. This is great. This gave us everything we could possibly want. This is great. Now we can add this to the list of Boeing shit that we have. We could make a whole Boeing playlist at this point.
Mm-hmm.
A conference sponsored by American and European Union regulators in Washington, D.C. this week. He said allegations against AOG.
Even War Thunder, it's aviation nerds fighting that keep leaking stuff.
Yeah, because they're like, oh yeah, here's my secret documents.
I imagine there's a similar type of autism for trains, but because there's not military,
there's no
purpose for
trains.
knowing about trains, we don't listen to those people. But I'm sure they're just as good with their sourcing.
Techniques are not isolated incidents. He added that the coalition notes that several areas key to the investigation efforts are documentation, authentication, and supplier standards, as well as oversight. Kokari said, I want to underscore the pace and intensity of this work. We're trying to accomplish this very quickly. This is a unique pop-up potential safety issue, and we've tried to move quickly addressing it. You know what I think the real fear in all this bogus titanium floating around is that none of us really know if Airbus and Boeing are actually telling the truth about any of this. I guess it's just one more thing to stress about while flying. And speaking of stress, that brings us back to Boeing and its literally always broke down space capsule. The Starliner, which is presently stranded at the International Space Station with no clue yet on when or if they...
That's just funny.
Well, China has offered an olive branch to Australia during high-level talks in Canberra, where protesters gathered on the lawns of Parliament.
For more, let's bring in Benjamin Herskovich, an expert on China and Taiwan with the Australian National University. Nice to see you, Benny. First up, this new form of military communication will be set up between our countries. Just wondering how that might work in the heat of battle.
Good morning. It's great to be with you. Look, it's quite unclear what this actually entails. The Australian and Chinese militaries already have a regular dialogue on an annual basis. It's possible this will mean some kind of hotline or some kind of more immediate contact, but the details are still TBC on this one. Having said all of that, though, it doesn't seem like in the end it'll change China's behavior. We've seen over the course of many years, China in the business of intimidating and threatening foreign militaries operating off its eastern seaboard. And so even if we have this additional means of communication, China will still be engaged in unsafe and unprofessional intercepts with the ADF and with other regional militaries.
Yeah, there seems to be like a disconnect, doesn't there, between what they're saying and what they're actually doing. And I guess that was also exemplified yesterday in the press pack when the Chinese officials tried to block freed Australian journalist Cheng Lei from cameras yesterday. That was bizarre.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, one of the ongoing key elements of this visit is that we have up front the positivity and the handshakes and the smiles and a lot of pandas involved. But the reality is that Australia and China remain divided over a whole host of really fundamental things. It's about things.
Pandas. Is Penny Wong there? She pandas a lot.
Like the Australian national interest and the Chinese national interest that often clash, but it's also about different values. There's a big ideological component to this. And the Chinese Communist Party that has control over China, they want to control the information domain. They don't want free debate and discussion. They don't want dissent. And we saw that in spades yesterday in Canberra, where there were both protests outside, counter protests, and also this effort to get an Australian journalist out of frame when their leader was on camera.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just finally, any upticks you can see?
Look, I think in a way, the relationship is at its high point already. The fact that we had this visit was a function of the warming ties between Canberra and Australia. But because of all those points of disagreement, it's unlikely to get any better from here. And of course, we'll still see on a regular basis cases of foreign interference from the Chinese government in Australia, intimidation of Chinese diaspora communities.
This dude knows what the fuck he's talking about. As soon as I saw this, I was like, thanks, Anthony Albanese.
I think I put this on here for you.
I was going to put this on already. As soon as I saw this, I was like, man, thanks a lot, Anthony Albanese. I'm so glad that I now know that you've put Chinese people and Uyghurs who have fled China in danger now because of this free travel thing. It's very cool. It's very fucking cool.
Intimidation of the ADF operating in the region, and it's unlikely to get much better from this point.
Very good, Ben. Thank you, mate. Thanks for being on. Appreciate
that insight. Well, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese insists.
Although the one thing that I need to find out is whether it's both ways or not.
reports Australia's relationship with China is, quote, renewed and revitalised after high-level talks. Let's bring in Nine political editor Charles Cratcher for his analysis. Charles, good to see you as always. Now, there was a lot riding on this meeting. I mean, even just getting to that point was pretty significant. How do you reckon it went?
Yeah, the meeting itself is important, isn't it? Just the fact that Australia is talking to Chinese officials and they're able to pick up the phone and be on the line to China is important, particularly given how unstable the rest of our region and really the rest of the world is at the moment. So the fact that
As bold as that.
the Premier is here, a meeting 7 years in the making, is significant. The government deserves credit for that. The former government deserves credit for standing up to China when it came to the coercion that was going on in our region as well. As for the meeting, we'll
China should stay within their exclusive economic zones and not push out to the entire South China Sea, because the map from 150 years ago say lines.
see if there are tangible things to come out of this. The two main focuses and the two things that I think people want to see is the final trade tariffs removed, that is the tariffs on crayfish and lobster, really important in South Australia and Western Australia for their export, and then this military-to-military communication, which could become vital in the future if something were to go wrong in the waters to our north.
All right, well, let's focus on those two. As you say, the talks did seem to centre around trade and military. On trade, when can we expect China to lift the last of those restrictions?
It's my favorite thing. It's so funny. I try and simplify it down to South China Sea is called China Sea, so it Chinas is the logic that they follow. It's just dumb.
Like the Shah of Iran did this shit with the Persian Gulf, where he would be offended if it was called the Arab Gulf.
It's the same shit. It's just ethno-nationalism. That's all it is.
What did you learn? He goes to the interview. He's like, "What did you call it when you were?" Because they started calling it the Arabian Gulf, and it became a thing around the time. And he's like, "What did you learn as what's called in the school?"
Yeah, I think we can. Lobster was on the menu for the Premier in South Australia on Sunday. It was a fairly pointed reminder that there remains some of these tariffs there. Look, these things usually happen at the start of a visit or at the end of the visit. We know it's through the start and hasn't happened, so we'll wait and see what happens later this afternoon. The other thing to keep in mind, while it is good that trade is normalising and this will allow things to go forward, there are producers out there now, particularly in our wineries and some of those beef producers that have been hit hard by this. And it takes a long time to get back into a market the size of China's, because while Australia's been gone, we know our plonk's the best in the world, but there have been other inferior wineries moving in places like South Africa and South America that are taking up the opportunity because the market is so big. So whilst it is a good sign, it's not just a matter of switching on a tap. This takes time, and that time means damage to the business.
You hear? You hear? It's just capitalism. They don't care. This is the average person. This is the average thing. People dying? Doesn't matter. Living conditions fucking awful? Doesn't matter. As long as the rich people are buying their wine in their upper class restaurants in their tier 1 cities, they don't give a shit. Just like the Chinese government doesn't give a shit about their poor and dying in the streets. Just like every other government doesn't give a fuck. Other governments aren't running concentration camps and black sites, though.
Of Australia.
Yeah, it sure does. I've been suffering for a long time, haven't
Yeah.
they, Charlie? Well, on to the more contentious issue then of
the-
military interests, I guess we can say
the
that.
poor-
The heat that we're seeing around
poor
the Pacific. I mean,
markets.
just yesterday there was a collision between Chinese and Filipino ships in the South China Sea. Did these talks yesterday address that kind of aggression?
Certainly brought it up, and it's something that had to be brought up. You know, this is something that will.
It's like
a
that
matter of time.
Speaker of the
Something
House who used to smoke with Obama.
Yeah.
He literally would be talking about small businesses and start fucking crying.
What the fuck?
Yeah, just remember,
That's
I typed it in. I was like, head of speaker who smoked with Obama crying,
Yes.
and it instantly came up with pictures of the guy crying.
It was very funny.
Didn't even really need to remember his name.
No.
was terribly wrong. We've already seen the Chinese sonar attacks on some of the Australian naval divers. We've seen that kind of aggressive and risky maneuvers from Chinese ships and aircraft, particularly in the South China Sea. And it's not just us, it's our allies. It's the US, it's the Philippines, it's Japan, it's some European ships as well. If something goes wrong, if there is an accident, if there is a miscalculation, there needs to be some kind of communication between militaries to prevent that accident becoming all-out war, because that would be catastrophic. You know, the Cold War...
Every conflict that's been in the South China Sea, China instigated. Just so you're aware. The only incident, miscommunication...
No, the Philippines are instigating because they won't get out of our water, said China. You
remained
bombed
cold
the
for the majority
bombast
because there
for
was
10
that hotline
years.
between the US and Russia. We need that now, and it's important for Australia as this intermediary player between China and the US, but also for America, for India, for Japan. You know, there is a lot of flashpoints there, and it could just take one spark, and that would be catastrophic for the outcome. So while the risk is largely and almost exclusively being taken by China, the responsibility is falling on everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot to unpack. You mentioned before, obviously, the Premier now heading to WA. But Charlie, just quickly, I wanted to get you on the treatment of Cheng Lei yesterday in Parliament. I mean, there seems to be a disconnect between the warm relationship we're seeing with the Prime Minister.
Damn, these guys are covering a lot.
Yeah.
Good Australian
and the way
news.
Chinese officials are treating
And this will be the
journalists.
part
I mean,
that gets
it's-
claimed, of course.
No, I already checked this. Don't worry.
Hmm.
I already
Interesting.
checked this. It's a morning show.
It's pretty appalling and truly bizarre, that behaviour yesterday.
It's bizarre. That's right, Sarah. Like it is two things. Firstly, it's sloppy. I mean, to try and prevent any kind of filming, I guess you're trying to prevent the official film, but look, there it is on the camera. You know, mission failed on that front when it comes to preventing. And the second thing it is brazen. You know, this is Australia's house of democracy. There were protests outside the building yesterday, protests that wouldn't be allowed in Beijing. There was the
China set up over 100 secret police stations around the globe. They don't give a fuck about your democracy.
Neither does Turkey.
No, neither does Turkey or Saudi Arabia. Or
Turkey
Russia,
literally
or
had
any of them.
Turkey literally had Kurdish activists protesting Erdogan in this country beaten by thugs
What the fuck?
in front of Secret Service, in front of our government.
That's wild.
Literally protesting a meeting with our government. Turkish
Insane.
thugs beat these people and face no consequences.
None?
Nope.
None at all.
Nope.
Crazy.
Barely reported on it. Look it up. Look, Erdogan.
No. No, it didn't.
Type in Erdogan thugs beat up protesters in America. It'll come up.
Fine.
The World Economic Forum is we've been over this how many times about the economy stat and why China's poverty stat doesn't mean anything. Just
Hold
like
on.
how they can fucking change their currency at will.
I have to deal with this all the time. Hold on. This is one of the easiest disinformation points to prove wrong. Much of the data comes from the statistical systems of member countries. It comes from China. Their numbers are illegitimate. They lie. Do you really think 5,000 people died from COVID in China? Do you really believe their statistics? Poverty is $1.92 a day. That's the poverty line. If China, and it's also an average. It is an average number. And as China and the wealth divide grows, that does not make poverty gone. It just means there's more rich people. That's it. These numbers are fake. This is one of Xi Jinping's biggest propaganda wins, and it's what he wants to be remembered for. And now that COVID happened, he's trying so hard to cover this up so that COVID isn't what he's remembered for. This is one of the first CCP narratives to come out of Xi Jinping's government. Please stop repeating this. This is a lie. China's poverty is insane.
kind of interactions, questions being asked of our Prime Minister, not theirs, and that's an issue for later. But and then there was this kind of display, so brazen in someone else's house, right here in the heart of our democracy, to be so brazen about it. It shows a level of disregard for Australia and for our institutions. So, look, that is a reminder that, as President Biden said, trust but verify. There's still a fair bit of verification that has to go on over the next few weeks and years.
It is a good reminder, Charles. As always, thanks for your insight.
When did he say that? I can't remember him being so eloquent lately. Thanks, Charlie. Welcome back to Prime Minister's Historic Meeting.
Go on.
Wow, Voice of America is the one who put it out crazy.
So what the guys in the suits are
They're literally Secret Service. That's Turkish Secret Service assaulting our citizens.
seriously?
Yes, that's Erdogan's personal Praetorian Guard.
Oh my god. And nothing happened.
Look at this. Look up what Pence did to help the thugs. If I recall, he got them out of jail. Look, he wants more sourcing on how China moves these numbers and their lines and makes it up.
Oh my god. So because the source is China's government, you're just like, oh, that exists, but the literal fact that every Chinese statistic is wrong and incorrect and inaccurate does nothing. That a history of deception and lies. Tiananmen
also,
Square.
No, you
like,
can literally but
look
it's
at
like
how much they cover
no,
shit
you
up.
can literally look at the economic thing though.
Well,
Like
yeah,
the
that
economic
too.
rate, like so, like they just changed the number of what defines poverty.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
all they
literally
did.
moved the line. Yeah, I believe they moved it from $1.20 to $1.50, something like that. They did move the actual line.
Yeah, so they said because poverty is now this, it's magically all these people who were in poverty yesterday aren't in poverty because we changed the number. And that's where a majority of the fucking statistic comes from.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. And like India is also a thing where it's like the wealth disparity. Like there's areas in India that are so bad. Like Slumdog Millionaire, the kid literally like falls into a pile of human shit in the beginning because he's from the slum, and that's how their porta potties were. They were just like a pile of human shit, and you would like be on like a boardwalk shitting into a pile. No, I think they did. I'd look it up. I'm just doing something else. Something they did some stuff. Fucking Trump loved Erdogan. What?
No, I'm just laughing.
At chat. Yeah, this meeting was yeah. And we're not surprised that like Trump's admin ended with enabling more of Turkish genocide.
Did I stop the screen share? What happened there?
Yes, that's why I've been waiting. I've been like, what's going on?
I
thought you were looking more shit up about China.
Oh, I was. I didn't realize I stopped the screen share.
That's why I was like, what are you laughing at?
Sorry.
miracle form of communication that will prevent China from firing on our soldiers in the
Bye,
heat of
Fudge.
battle.
I am
don't think
looking
anyone
shit
quite
up. I
believes
didn't realize it wasn't screen sharing. That's my bad.
Well, firstly, I'd say that I think progress has been made through this visit. Of course, we need to look at where we can cooperate with China. Of course, we will disagree at times, and that's important too, but always in our national interest. So I think progress is made. Cooperation in areas where we can will be pursued, but that's not going to stop Australia standing up for our national interest, and we will keep doing that.
I guess what I'm saying is that how do you prevent China from firing upon our soldiers with this form of communication?
Well, I think the Prime Minister had a fruitful meeting and
This is great. Okay. Here's a graph for you.
What's it say? Because I can't.
Here's a
read
graph.
I can't read it on my monitor.
Okay. It says the blue line, China absolute poverty, $1.25 per day. The poverty rate is $1.90 per day. So we're already starting from an already lower mark here. That's already disingenuous. Great. See the green line and the orange line. The green line is the developing world. China is relative poverty. That's 50% average rural urban incomes. It plateaued. That does and then the purple line is inequality.
Which is why the blue line plummets, because it's the absolute.
Exactly.
Yeah, so literally it's just wealth inequality.
It's wealth inequality. It is not poverty alleviation. Can we please just drop this poverty alleviation bullshit?
The poverty rate is determined by it's the median, right? So it's the average of the statistic, right? So it's just below and above average. But the thing is the difference is like there's not slightly below average anymore. It's all way below average.
This is cult mentality.
The question was you can't just cope out of it because you're asking a question on capitalism. The poverty rate is measured. You're quoting something
it's a global
that's
rate.
measured something through these capitalist things. So you're quoting that the poverty rate went up when that's a capitalist metric being run by capitalist data, and that capitalist data doesn't support the statistic that you tried to pull. You can't just cope out of it by saying, well, it's capitalism. No shit. It's the fucking poverty rate that's set by capitalism.
And continue to have dialogue with China, making it very clear about what our national interest is. Of course, we'll continue to look at ways we'll cooperate. But of course, when it comes to protecting our defence force and standing up for our national interest, we will.
Typical nationalist talking points here. This is what I wanted. Yeah.
China has opened an anti-dumping probe into imported pork from the European Union. The step comes less than a week after.
They're doing this.
This is retaliation.
They're doing this whining.
So for the anti-dumping probes from the EU into the EV things, they're now doing pork dumping.
Inequality is fueled by capitalist motivators. Exactly. So the rate hasn't gone up. Period. Only inequality has, which is what Jack said from the start.
Brussels announced new curbs on electric vehicle exports from China. That was due to growing alarm over Chinese industrial overcapacity flooding the EU.
See, this is another reason why you don't trust China. What kind of petty, pathetic country to an actual, genuine investigation into what the fuck is going on responds with, oh yeah, well, we're going to do one too. Pathetic. They are
America
nation...
when Israel gets sanctioned by the UN.
Yes, I agree.
But it didn't actually go through. It's just some people in Congress who are whining that they're going to do it.
This is like the state. This is the Chinese state having a cry, right? So why should we deal with a country like this when they want to act like children? We should treat them like children and sit them in the child's spot at the child's table. That's what they want to act like. That's where they sit. I don't give a fuck. If you want to play on the world stage, act like a world player. I would prefer there no world stage, but if we're talking in reality here, if you want to participate, participate. Stop being a pussy. Stop being a fucking sook. Stop being a child. Grow the fuck up.
With cheap products, including EVs. China's Commerce Ministry said the investigation, which was announced and commenced on Monday, will focus on fresh, cold and frozen whole cuts of pork and pork byproducts. The ministry added that the probe was prompted by a complaint
It's so
from the
funny
China
because
Animal
like
Husbandry.
pork is like their only import.
And it's like, isn't it one of their biggest things that they consume?
Mm-hmm. So it's like, why are you going after it?
Mm. You are sucking down basic, easy to disprove Chinese talking points.
It's hubris is when you look up sources and know facts and are good at your job.
Like, this is obvious. I don't know how much easier, like how much more I have to say here to convince you, which is why I said that it's cult behavior, because it's
you
just
are
like
just trying
believing
to convince somebody that 9/11 was al-qeada.
Yeah, like you are believing
like
the
impossible.
first bit of information that you intook, and you are coping to maintain that as your belief because you've held this belief for so long.
Unwilling and unknowing agent.
It's not. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Is I'm, and this is what we were getting to before. Is that you are an unwilling agent at this point for this purpose of the Chinese government.
Who gives a fuck if they're playing a game? It's not about the game. Who cares? Who the fuck cares? Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're playing, if they're like, oh, the protectionism is bad. They're just using their own systems against them. I don't give a fuck about protectionism. My EV arguments are on fucking humanity and human rights. It has nothing to do with protectionism. I don't give a fuck. If they were producing quality EVs, I would be advocating for buying them. And if they were sourced ethically, I'd be advocating for buying them. I don't eat chocolate, bro. Like, I live what I preach as like a very staunch and strict Buddhist that definitely puts humanity's interest above my own. Chocolate is delicious.
I cannot claim that purity. There are some things that I won't touch, like wider things, and I'll tell people not to touch them. Yeah, things that and it's more to get it to a point where people start becoming aware that then they can start looking into it further to make their own decisions, right? Like wholesale getting people not to buy shit through Temu is a pretty good fucking start. Also, not buying fast fashion from Shein and all these shitty companies like that. That's a good start.
I keep trying to get people who are like work on the anti-fast fashion shit, and they just don't care. You know, they're like, you're too small. I don't care. I'm a size queen.
Yeah.
Association on behalf of the domestic pork industry. The European Commission announced on June the 12th that it would impose tariffs of up to 38.1% on imported Chinese cars from July. Global food companies have been on high alert for retaliatory action from China since then. European Commission spokesperson Olaf Yill.
The answer is no, we're not the least bit worried, because not all subsidies are the same. And any subsidies that take place under the Common Agricultural Policy, or indeed in any other policy area in the European Union, are strictly in line with our WTO obligations, and we put the strongest possible emphasis on ensuring that this is the case.
See, do you want to know why I believe them? Because the EU has a track record of not lying. The EU is like an entity, right? I don't like the EU, but generally they're not outright lying when they're making statements like this, right? Generally, you can back up what they're saying with actual statistics, where China's policy for the longest time was just yell at people. That's essentially all their tactics were for diplomatic interactions that weren't.
But
like
that's having a bias.
Spain is the top supplier of pork to China, and its pork producers group, Interpork, said they would fully cooperate with China's investigation.
Wow.
European pork producers should be able to keep
I wonder,
exporting to China
that's the
tariff-free
best thing.
while the
That's like
investigations
how I
underway.
was saying it would be funny if the Taliban held an election,
Yeah.
right? So like that's the thing, is just responding with, okay, we'll cooperate in full with your investigation.
Yeah.
Like that's like
yeah, obviously nothing to hide, right? And China spends months blocking investigations. And what other countries do we know that does this?
America.
I didn't say large group of bureaucrats. All those politicians individually are likely liars. What I'm saying is that a group that large is never going to agree so much to actually produce a coherent lie.
Well,
That's
yeah,
my
it's
point.
based
It's
on
the
data
same.
that we've went over multiple times about how
Yeah.
multiple countries have seen and they've gotten fucked because of imports that happen, and then they clog up their ports, and they're forced to buy the EVs that there is no demand for. So the government is then taking money out of the national budget to offload Chinese EVs in their ports, and then forcibly having to sell them onto people. Like, that is overconsumption shit, right? Like, that's as simple as it is. It's not like, well, maybe if they sold wind turbines, it would be okay. No. The reason why they have an issue with the EV is because of this practice. And it's because it's government cheese in China. So if the EVs weren't so subsidized, there might be, like, people might not care about the quality or any of this shit. It's specifically that. It's nothing else. It's specifically the import and clogging up ports on why this happens. We've seen that it happens. We don't need to believe anything that the EU says, because we've seen what happens in the ports themselves. And we can then say, oh, this policy is based on reality of a thing that we can witness. We can literally look at footage, we can look at video, we can look at records on so many independent things on how this happens in so many countries. And even ahead of time, weeks ago, I was saying multiple times, these are the narratives that are going to come from this. But at the end of the day, what is it? It's about imports in a port being clogged up. I said it over and over and over and over.
Also, I said when you brought this up, I didn't say that they were Chinese puppets. I said they were unwilling agents.
Hey, unwilling agents. And again, you watch us enough that you should understand when we talk about this constantly on how a majority of people online have no immunity to information warfare, and they're unwilling agents. Nothing about an agent says that you have to know that you're one. That's not how it, like, when we create agents, when the CIA goes out and they create agents, those people do not know they're working for the CIA. They're literally supposed to be, like, indoctrinated. Like, this is why al-qeada is more like an intelligence agency, because, like, you look at this guy who was just arrested in Minnesota. His initial point for getting pulled into Daesh was that Assad was killing people in his home country. And that led to him going to do attacks on America. It doesn't make sense. It's not a logical conclusion. And that's because he was manipulated by intelligence.
And that would
it's
make
literally people's jobs to deceive you. That is the point. That is why our entire brand is resistance against information ways. Whether it's American, EU, Chinese, Arabia, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, and like, to the, like, here's the definition if you don't believe us. It's got nothing to do with being puppets or paid or controlled, just acting on behalf. That's all it says. But back to this one. My larger point here was it's more towards the idea of a conspiracy theory. If more than 2 or 3, maybe 3 at the most, more than 2 or 3, conspiracy theory is likely untrue, because the chance of 3 people holding on to a secret is already pretty low. Between 2 people, pretty high. 3, not so much. Any more than that, and it just diminishes from there. So my entire point here, that the EU on notions like this, on statements like this, they wouldn't necessarily and have a track record of not lying in these statements. And I have a tendency to believe them because of the 700 and whatever members in the EU. Does that make sense? I feel like I made no sense there. But like it's just sort of the same mindset that would make me be like, okay, well, conspiracy theory is likely not true for this reason. Also makes me, also the same train of thought leads me to believing large groups that come to a consensus because there's compromise. It's democracy. I'm more inclined to believe that. True. That is true. And it's not the only thing that I rely on. As I said, track records, and also we know the information.
Yeah, it would be like if Boeing said something now about anything, we'd tell them to go fuck themselves.
Exactly. They are no longer credible. And Boeing is China in this situation. Right? That's more the point. And, you know, there's track record. Did you hear about the mass shooting that happened in China a couple months ago? I bet you fucking didn't.
What about the tourist stabbing? That went viral.
That did go viral. They've been trying to hide what they were saying in response, though.
Mm-hmm.
Customs data showed that.
Anyway, we've got to.
That's how they have such a tight hold on information warfare. That's why they're so good at it. It's not because they have good export, it's good domestic control, right? So when they export narratives abroad, there's nothing that they're letting out that's countering stuff.
And
I think a good example of this is really when you see people come into Congress who like represent medicine companies, like pharmaceutical companies, right? And the things that they're going to say, but like already we're going to be like, oh, you're a fucking, you know, like we're going to roll our eyes at them, but then you're going to see the fucking Congress start siding with these fucking experts depending on like certain degrees and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here we go. You're going to say, you're literally repeating stuff that you've already repeated in the past. So keep saying that you're not an unwilling agent, bro.
They invaded Vietnam.
Also, wars of aggression isn't the end all be all of imperialism.
Yeah. No.
Like, America has waged wars. I don't give a fuck. Like, when did I say that America is like the dick that I like to suck? Never. I literally fucking helped people kill Americans, bro.
Like, I just don't understand how it always just sort of doubles back to this, and it's like this
track records. Track records for what? For what? Like, do we trust America when they go to war about shit? No. Has the Iraq War eroded trust in the American government? Yes. So who gives a fuck? It has nothing to do with fucking the capitalist side and business interests. You know, even civilization can make multiple ways on how you fucking win the game. It's not just domination. And if you think of something that's just that simulatory and reduced of how politics works can get it, you think a normal person could.
Imperialism, state policy, practice or advocacy of extending power and dominion, especially by territorial acquisitions or by gaining political and economic control over other areas.
This is such libertarian shit. As long as it's the nonviolent principle, it's fine for me to enslave people.
Like, can we?
Because I didn't do it violently, and they agreed by contract to be a slave.
Because it always involves the use of power, whether military or economic or subtler form, imperialism has often been considered morally reprehensible, and the term is frequently employed in international propaganda to denounce and discredit an opponent's foreign policy. Plot twist, it's all imperialism.
Yeah. It's a spaceman meme. Wait, it's all imperialism? Always has been. My favorite is like they go to Azerbaijan, right? And they say like, hey, don't you like suppress journalists and you don't let people do like fair and balanced reporting in your country and you're notorious for that? And he just responds with, what about Julian Assange?
Yeah, it's
again,
the same.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? We're not sucking America's dick, moron. Listen to me. Fuck America. It's not China is worse than these countries. It's all nation states. It is the concept of a nation state that we are specifically against. We work against the interest of nation states, not for them. It's that simple. It's not a fucking competition on whose dick is bigger, China's or America's. Like, America has plenty of issues as well. When we're talking about China, we're talking about lies around poverty and trade economics. You think we can't look at America's lies around trade economics here? You think America has never lied when they've done trade either? Who cares?
Also,
look at the fucking Panama Canal. Look at how many people died building that for us and how we fucking rule Panama now. Fuck America. Who cares?
I also just want to point out. Hold on.
China's worse, I know.
Like what are we doing here? Can we stop? Please?
Plus, the big issue with our prison system is the racial disparity.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah.
And
I mean,
systemic fucking racism and injustices and poverty. It's so much deeper than just prison abolition. It's complete abolition.
Yeah. And even that is comparable in China too. Like their ethno state and the racism is insane. The supremacy mindset that they have in this Peking man idea that Xi Jinping pushed to the forefront is fucking insane. It's insane. And like, I focus on China because I live in the area. Right? It's kind of
it's almost like we literally told Jack he can't talk about Israel because he didn't have enough experience on it when the war broke out.
Like most of my focus has been the Asia Pacific. So it's like I don't have the experience in the Middle East. This is my focus. I'm not an expert, but I know what I'm talking about. I'm not an expert yet.
Bump stocks are aftermarket editions that allow weapons to fire hundreds of bullets a minute.
They don't.
They were banned by then President Donald Trump in 2018.
This morning,
incorrect reporting again.
They did the process to issue a new regulation banning.
See, like the bump stocks, for example. If you're against bump stocks and you want to ban them, I'm perfectly go ahead. I'm just pointing out the fact that it is not what defines as an automatic weapon. You know, you can ban whatever you want with your local legislation. It's like people will be like, any gun law is unjust. I don't care.
Yeah. China was always militarized. They invented gunpowder.
Following a 2017 shooting
at so China probably claims Mongolia at this point too.
Vegas that killed 60 people.
We also can't talk about like
they're occupying 30%.
If a country has nuclear weapons, we can't suck their dick like they're peacemakers.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck India, fuck Pakistan, fuck Israel, fuck France, fuck Russia, fuck China, fuck North Korea, and fuck America. Anyone else? Fuck the UK. Is that it? Is that all of them?
I think that's it. As far as we know.
1,000 rounds
fuck
from
Iran,
a hotel window.
Case.
Yeah, just in case.
Overturning that ban last week, the Supreme Court's conservative majority said the then Trump administration overstepped its authority in outlawing bump stocks.
That I'm interested in, but I'm not interested in actually having a real position on it. I think it's an interesting conversation of deterrence, that like wars have been prevented because nukes exist. And I do subscribe to like the nuclear taboo and that deterrence has worked, like nuclear threats and like that type of shit has worked. But the people with the nuclear weapons, I mean, just look at Russia, how much they're able to do just because they have nukes.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously America has done the same because they have such a fucking military supremacy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they are the hegemon. They are the military hegemon. So
economic too.
Yeah. So what security and economic, what are the other ones?
I mean,
basically
it depends on its industries.
Soft power.
You know?
Japan has that.
But like America's projection is just the biggest.
Cultural. Well, America has a cultural victory as well.
Yeah, I
There's
mean, if we're
McDonald's in
talking
every
Civ,
fucking
America
country in
has
the
won
world.
all the categories.
Every category. The game's over.
Yeah. And no, that's why America is normally like Teddy Roosevelt's overpowered there. But like at the same time, go to Central Asia. You're going to find America there? You're going to find Americanism there? Is there going to be people being like, oh, I love America. Look at my fucking American flag. I love the bald eagle. Caca. Just doesn't exist. And that's why I was saying with this, the ISIS Russian takeover? Prison takeover? So they literally only had shivs. And I was like, wow, has Russia bombed these people yet? Because they literally all have shivs and they're out here making threats and stuff.
Crazy.
Like, guys, you are fucked. Right? But like if you think about this, right? I was saying
I would grab my food, talk.
No, you can just listen because like me, I'm always defending jihadis because I think they're represented in many things. And plus we already know they're atrocious. So like just more education on how they think, I don't think is harmful. But the Arab Chechnyan guy, Khattab, he was really influential with media and social media. He even knew Kurdish to like appeal to Kurdish people, Persian, Arabic, Pashtun. He knew several languages just to make videos to recruit people to come to Chechnya. He was really good friends with bin Laden. And he would argue that bin Laden was wasting his time with this like anti-America shit and Russia was the real enemy. So I was saying that he was right the whole time, Khattab, because if you think about this, ISIS, right? If ISIS is targeting Russia as the hegemony there, they help, and the Ukraine war is helping them, right? Like, so as Russia weakens and ISIS does attacks against Russia and Russia's grip starts to slip, where's it slipping? Central Asia. Central Asia is literally just automatically in the caliphate if they succeed in their mission against Russia. They just have more to gain for their goals of making a caliphate than they do to like target America and the effort that it takes between the two. Like it'll take them less effort to destabilize Russia and gain their gains in Central Asia than anywhere in like Iraq and Syria and whatever they were trying to do with the Middle East. But that's ISIS, not al-Qaeda, right? So like al-Qaeda's goal has always been about the Arab monarchies and overthrowing them. Their goal is like so much more complicated. But as far as like establishing a caliphate type thing and like that goal of dominionism that ISIS has and other groups like the Muslim Brotherhood have, they had it. Like Khattab was right the whole time. He just, couldn't see bin Laden's vision.
He was a man before his time.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, he was. Because it's just wild, like what they're invading Iraq and they're not even looking at the internet.
Russia is such a better target. It really is.
Well, I'm talking about America too. Like America going in and not understanding the jihadi like info web. Like information, imagine, like the reason why I say ISIS trained me in information warfare is because that's what I would do. Is like I would be learning this shit from ISIS.
Like imagine what America could have done had they just been switched on. They could have taken down Russia entirely.
Hijacking jihadi narratives to push them into Chechnya and stuff.
Like,
dude,
CIA
if they wanted to be that crooked,
fucking hell, they could have taken down Russia bigger. That should have given America the biggest fucking hard on they've had since nuclear weapons.
But they literally didn't. You know what it was? Like literally, because like when they go to torture Abu Zubaydah, they call Ali Soufand. He's from Lebanon. So he got his start with the FBI agency through the Lebanon civil war. So because he spoke Arabic, it's who the CIA had to call to come in to speak to Abu Zubaydah. So that's the issue, is they weren't looking at jihadi media because they didn't hire somebody who spoke Arabic. It's literally the Myanmar shit in Facebook. It's like they're that fucking stupid. We're not talking about benefit. We're talking about America's interest here. Right?
Yeah. No, we're talking.
You didn't have a problem when I was just talking about ISIS's benefit, but suddenly when we're talking about destabilizing, when it comes to America destabilizing them, then it's bad. The point is that for ISIS's goals, Russia is the better target. That's why they're attacking and done attacks in Russia.
Mhm.
Like, and especially with this, it's mostly Central Asian now. I mean, outside of Africa, of course, it's all
Tajiks,
Central
right?
Asian. And think about it. Like, think about how quickly caliphates would rise in Central Asia.
Oh yeah, yeah, so quickly. But yeah, the other point that I wanted to make is that we're not talking from our positions, our personal positions. We're talking from the positions of the nation state here. We're analyzing. Like, you have to realize we aren't YouTubers. We're not streamers. We're journalists. John is an analyst. I wouldn't call myself one yet. I'm still developing. But that's what we're doing. So like we're talking from a perspective of the nation state as critics of it.
The decision